I'm coming that broken down and defeated, detergent, busy and confused, sleeping. You're dying while I wait you to get started on the journey chosen, wasted, no selected. I was so bad, what happened? Fall out of the sky and crush me in my smile. I was so bad, what happened? Fall out of the sky and crush me in my smile. Sober, sad and jaded. Then I'm coming back broken down and defeated. You are dying while I wait you to get started. You are dying while I wait you to get started. I was so bad, what happened? Fall out of the sky, yeah. Crush me in my smile. I was so bad, what happened? Fall out of the sky and crush me in my smile.
I'm a motherfucking unicorn, a one-of-one. The vibe being the love and light, the enlightened one. My karma is interstellar, I live by truth. Fighting evil, my scars are living proof. Protecting you from the storms with all my might. Love me, I will treat you right. You ever cross me, it's the last thing you'll ever do. With my crown of thorns, I'll wreck you. I ain't playing, yo, Bryan hard, call me a saint. Too bad Chris, because Bigfoot knows my name. I'm a messenger of God, with loyalty I serve, taking out all evil with his holy word. A true Knights Templar, sword in hand, slice you up, bury you in the sand. I'm a motherfucking unicorn, you'll never find anyone like me. Born in the Bronx, raised in NYC, so listen up, take heed. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. A true Knights Templar, sword in hand, slice you up, bury you in the sand. I'm a motherfucking unicorn, you'll never find anyone like me. Born in the Bronx, raised in NYC, so listen up, take heed. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Hello. Welcome to Third Eye Live. I am your host, Bryan Bowden, Sir Bryan. And we have a mother unicorn to join us right now. There he is. There's Mr. Mark Eddy. Mark Eddy is joining us tonight. Mark Eddy is from Mark Eddy Productions. He is one hell of a great human being. And how you doing tonight? Are you good?
Okay. Well,
You're okay?
I'm all right. How much do I owe you for that?
You don't owe me anything for that. I just want to welcome everybody to the show, and Mark's a great guy to do it because Mark produces a ton of shows and he does a lot of stuff in the background. You'll never know it. Like he's an author, and this is his latest book that came to the screen. How to Live with a Huge Penis by Mark Eddy, PhD.
Yeah. I'll be a guest soon talking about that.
Now, this is a follow up to the previous book, How to Live with a Huge. Well, and I knew I was going to get in trouble for this tonight. So yeah, we're gonna get rid of this. But no, Mark has a book coming out. He's on the last ends of Michelle's like, oh my god, I am dead. Yeah, I am dead already. I'm dead inside Michelle. Thank God for Mark, because we have a great guest thanks to Mr. Mark Eddy. We have a magical TV star, but a reverend and an author. And when Mark suggested Michael J. Carter, I was like, I know who he is. There are the books. You got to go a little bit more in there into the light, and we're gonna. I'm removing.
Get blur.
Yeah. It's because you use the blur background. Yeah, it's because you don't want anybody to see the dead bodies behind you. So.
It's a mess from like 5 floods. The house is too small for
West Virginia. So yep. I was born in the Bronx, raised in NYC, and he was, thank God, a country boy. I think John Denver your neighbor? He's a West Virginia guy, right?
No, I don't think he's a native, but he did sing "Take Me Home, Country Roads" at the opening of Mountaineer Field in like September of 1980. I saw him there.
1980. Well, that was well before he passed away, I believe. But if it wasn't for Mark, a lot of shows wouldn't have their guests, and I wouldn't be doing multiple shows these days. Last Thursday of the month, I'll be on Spaced Out Radio. And you really want to tune in this next last Thursday, which is in a couple of weeks. I promise you're going to love it. But tomorrow morning, thanks to Mark Eddy, I'm going to be on Awake Nation doing my slot 9 to 9:30 in the morning. Thank God they moved it to the drive time because now I got to get up. And then in the afternoon from 12 to 1, I'm going to be on this lovely lady. You met her on the show where she connected everything to 11 and Stranger Things. That's Penny L.A. Shepherd. She has a show called Agent X11, and I'm going to be on there with Bryan Singh and Penny and a few other people. So go check that out. That's on Rumble because only the cool kids are on Rumble. Because you can say shit on Rumble and they're not going to like dox your ass. But I don't want to waste any more time. I want to bring Reverend Michael Carter to our forefront and stage, and we're gonna put him to the front. Look at this. It's like the Hollywood squares here. I like Reverend Michael Carter for the block, please. How are you, sir? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I guess we lost the family audience at the beginning of the show.
You know what?
It was a transition from that to now we have Reverend Carter on. It was like I don't think I've ever experienced that kind of intro. That was
it's good that you're here because now we can be blessed and maybe get the bad stuff out. God even had us. Yeah, God has a sense of humor.
Yes, no question.
The platypus.
Yes.
And some of the people there. So it's a little bit of a weird segue, but we're blessed to have you here, and I enjoyed what I've seen of you on shows, and I appreciate the books information being sent to me. I have them in my. I'm able to transfer it over so I can read it on my Kindle. I have
Hmm.
something on my iPad, so I can pull it in and read the book. And the latest one is, I don't know if this is the latest one. I apologize. But I have
Oh, it's
alien
okay.
scriptures, extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, which
Oh,
I
That
love.
was the first one.
yeah,
That
that
was
was
the
my
first one.
first one. Yeah, my latest book is a book of sermons called Enlightenment. That's my latest book. I've got 5 books now, but we can talk about any one of those.
Yeah, no, I mean, when Mark suggested you come on, um, what I definitely wanted to have you on because I'm just putting up your Amazon thing right now, so people can understand that you can go to his Amazon page, Reverend Michael J.S. Carter, and you can acquire his books there. Something that I love is I love autograph books. Is there a way someone can purchase an autograph copy or not yet?
Not yet, not yet. But yeah, I like to autograph copies too. I like to autograph them, but only time I really get a chance to do that is when I'm at a conference. So it's
Right.
live. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. And then Mark has his book down below, autographed. So
Yeah.
Oh,
This is my latest book.
there we go.
Yeah, it's a book of sermons on philosophy, religion, politics, those kinds of things. Nice light subjects.
Yeah,
But you can get that. You can get that on Amazon as well.
that's not a light subject. I mean, you know what?
No,
People are,
yeah.
yeah, people are more, like they'll quickly switch to extra. I think extraterrestrials are real, and then when you get into politics and the sermons, but because some individuals in that are going to watch this may not know who you are and why, we love you to have you here and the sermon. How, can you give a brief bio of yourself and
Sure, sure.
where your third eye or that connection, the pineal gland with the Lord, has actually driven you? Because I think people will be very, very surprised, and they're all going like, I know him. Where did I see him before?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, at the post office. He's wanted. That guy. No, yeah, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a Unitarian Universalist clergy person. I serve a congregation here in North Carolina. I started my career in the theater, in the professional theater. I lived in New York City from Baltimore originally, for about almost 30 years. But I wasn't happy then. And so I went into theater, I went into ministry, which is something I'd always wanted to do. I was raised in the Baptist tradition. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a healer. I'm a clergy person. Like I said, I serve a congregation, and I'm a writer. And so I have a really full life, and I'm also an experiencer, which is how I got into this topic. And as some of you know, I do various things for the History Channel, probably most notably for Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, I was gonna puff my hair up, just like
Ah,
George.
like
No, it's like that.
Giorgio.
Yeah, Giorgio.
Yeah.
But so let's get into, like, because there's a big divide there. I mean, um, what was your experience, and when did you know that you were an experiencer? What was, like, how did you figure that one out?
Oh, it was pretty easy. Back in 1989, on December 28th, my wife at the time and I were in Mexico, in Cancun, and we decided one day we didn't want to go to the beach, so let's go to the Yucatan Peninsula. There was a bus trip there,
Right.
and we went to see the pyramids at Chichen Itza and Tulum. fascinating, as you can imagine, or maybe if you've been there. And so coming back home, we got off at JFK, and I had been invited to a gathering at a friend of mine's house down in Hell's Kitchen. So I took the subway down to Times Square. My wife didn't want to go. She was tired, and she just wanted to unpack and go to bed. I, on the other hand, wanted to gloat because I was like copper tanned and it was 85 degrees. They were freezing there, what's off in Manhattan. So I went, and it was a nice gathering. No adult beverages were served, tons of deviled eggs, which is my weakness. And I went home, and when I went home that night, I came in, she was asleep, gave her a little kiss, and I got in the bed. Now later that night, or actually early morning, and I don't know if to this day whether I had to go to the bathroom or whether there was maybe I sent someone in the room, but when I got up, this gentleman was
Oh
at
man.
the foot of my bed. He didn't have the robe on, and I'm using the word he. It could have been a she, could have been an it, but he had a jumpsuit on that looked like that, like Reynolds wrap, and about 4 feet tall, no taller, I don't think, and just stared at me. Around him was a bright light, a blue light, like a cobalt blue, and around him was the whole room was lit up. My wife did not wake up, or either she couldn't wake up, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And this person just looked at me and I looked at them and I got in the fetal position and pulled the covers up over my head. Now, this was at the Excelsior Hotel. It's still there, 45 West 81st Street between Columbus and the Park, residential hotel. We lived on the 15th floor. At that time, I pulled the covers up over my head and I got in a fetal position and I heard like the wind blowing, like the temperature changed, like I felt like I was outside. But my mind is trying to figure all this stuff out. I'm in bed. How could I be outside? I'm scared to death. And I heard the wind whoosh, whoosh. And when I finally grew a pair and pulled the covers off of me, no one was there. No one was there. I woke her up. We talked about it. She didn't say, "What are you, some kind of a nut?" And I told her what went on. And from that day, for about 8 months to a year, every full and new moon, so that's twice a month, I would get visited. I would be paralyzed. Um, I was shown pictures of things. Uh, I felt electricity going through my body. I felt like my chakras were being worked on. And I know you want to get a question in, so I'm going to be quiet. And I started seeing different beings at different times.
Um,
So it was no doubt that I was an experiencer after that.
oh, I always ask that question when people are like, oh, "I'm an experiencer." I'm like, "I want to hear your experience."
Yeah, well, I
Um,
got tons. I got tons of them. I've been healed. I had a blood clot healed. I'll be talking about that on Ancient Aliens in a few weeks. I got healed by a Nordic person, and a
God,
friend of mine who's probably listening because I sent her the link to the show. She's a healer as well. She wasn't even there, and when I told her about it, she drew a picture of the being that came to her, and it looked pretty much like the being who visited me. I've had reptilians. I have a friend who makes these for me. She's an experience as well.
oh,
She's an artist, and she makes these for me. I describe what I saw. I had a reptilian visit me, and I've had a praying mantis
praying
visit me
mantis.
back in 2019. So yeah, and of course it got me thinking about wow. And I don't. I'm not a nuts and bolts person, so that's not how my mind works, but I'm a clergy person, and so I kind of, want to see how would this affect someone religiously, spiritually? And so that's where my focus goes to. And then I started reading and studying and finding out from my research that these beings are all over the place, but especially in our sacred scriptures.
When um, I know I have missing time, and I don't always recall. In the two incidents I know of missing time, I don't recall anything.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not going to get regressed because the reason why a lot of times they keep that information out of you is so that you don't re-experience, and it could be very painful. Okay, so I'm fine with it, but I do remote viewing. I've been working on the gateway tapes, and I get communications quite often and downloads. And the more you use it, it's like a muscle. It gets stronger, and you can do it. But one remote viewing, because you're a New York City guy, we had a group out of Yonkers, New York. I was working in New York City at 42nd Street,
Hmm.
right by 3 Times Square, for a bank, and this girl was there, and we used to have these great conversations at lunch. She was really sweet, and like, what about aliens? What about this? What about that? And then she goes, I dare you to go to one of these meetups, because Meetup was big at the time. This is a long time ago. And she goes, how about this UFO meetup in New York City? I said, give me something closer to Yonkers. So she found one, and I went there, and it was like walking into an X-Files episode. Those scenes in the X-Files where they have that, like, the group, it's like a group therapy, like everybody's sitting in those school chairs. All right, Carl, your turn now. But I mean, some people, I'm not going to deny that people have experiences or they've experienced something, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's extraterrestrial. And there were,
No, that's true.
right, and there were individuals there that, for the lack of a better term, needed help. They weren't, and it got into a weird area there. But I remember we started doing the CE5 protocols, which, my personal opinion, Greer did not invent. They were part of the CE list a long while ago. 1, 2, close account of, the second, the third, the fourth. And when you picked up that Nordic, we were in Hastings on the Hudson. We met at a different location because it overlooked the Hudson River. Beautiful spot. You could take Metro North up there. And there was one woman in the group. Her name was Carolyn. And she was a pain in the you-know-what. And she would just do things that aggravated you because she's better than you, because she lives in Greenwich and she has whatever. So we're doing a CE5 protocol. I can't listen to Greer stuff. So I go in and I do I do my own. I use binaural beats. I literally am transported from Earth into a spacecraft, and I get there, and it's the weirdest thing. When you picked up that Nordic, that is basically almost to a T of the Nordic that was sitting in the main center of this craft. And the way I describe, because if you look at your Nordic, it kind of has a Thor feel to it.
Hmm.
Remember comic book days? And when you picked that up, I was like, bingo. I mean, she's doing a great job translating what you're telling her
Hmm.
into these sculptures. Does she sell the sculptures?
She does. Her name is Carol. I'm sorry, McLeod. She's in Wellington, Nevada.
That's
Yeah, she's in
that's great.
Wellington, and
So,
she's a very talented artist, and
but
she makes those sculptures and necklaces and all kinds of stuff.
yeah, we have Oklahoma Nano, one of our fan favorites right there. She wants to order one, order some, and I'm sure, you know, in this group that we have here that's live, and it fluctuates like everything else in life. I got a lot of people that watch it afterwards. I'd love to, if it's all right with her and she's willing for get some business from people.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'd
I'm
like to
sure.
preach,
If you contact me, send something
yeah,
to my email, and I'll give you
sure.
her information. Yeah.
It's all about the love, in my opinion.
Hmm.
That's what it's about, right? So, but what I
Yes.
love the fact is you started off with a small gray, and they just stared at you. Did they communicate with you telepathically at any point or later on?
Not okay. Not on that day. Um, what was happening? And the short answer is yes, and I'll tell you that. But
Sure.
it took a while. One night they came because they would always come after that night when my wife worked at night, and so after that I was home by myself, and they would paralyze me. Um, and at one time they showed me what I interpreted as a past life. I was a monk, and they showed a future event that happened, and I remembered it. It didn't happen until years after, but they'd done that. They got me into hands-on healing, and they wouldn't talk. They would just show me pictures in my head.
Yeah.
The only person who spoke to me was the reptilian, and it was a male voice, and of course it's the classic "Don't be afraid." One and he touched me. When I was in Boston years ago, I was an anti-racism trainer, and I got recognized by President Clinton, which I'm very proud of. We did a lot of hard work, but I was staying at a B&B, and they found me there, a gray person,
Yeah.
and what happened was I was paralyzed, and my eyes. I looked, and my eyes. I closed my eyes. I just didn't want to look, and he showed me. It's on my business card now. A pair of hands in prayer with a lightning bolt. And he was pointing at it. It was like an icon on a computer. It was a
Right.
gray pointing as if, don't look at me, look at what I'm showing you. And it was a hands in prayer with a lightning bolt through it. And I interpreted that as healing, prayer and healing. And so that's what I started. I started out doing Reiki, and then after my contacts, the energy would change, and I wound up. Now I call it space Reiki. I don't know what it is, but it's really powerful. And I have a practice here, and I use that at hospitals, and I have clients that come here for counseling, and that kind of thing. So I credit that to them, kind of nudging me.
You're you're on mute.
I do that too much. I need I need a producer. We have Jen, who has the Paranormal Newfoundland podcast and Boots on the Ground team. And she's asking you, is that like Soul Genesis? I've never heard of Soul
I've
Genesis.
I've never heard of Soul Genesis.
If you can go a little deeper, Jen, that'd be great. And we'll figure that out. Um, what's interesting is, have you ever been paralyzed by them and someone has surprised them, like come in like, hey Mike, we're gonna go, oh my god.
No,
um
I
situation?
haven't. I used to wonder why the paralysis. I don't know whether it's protect them or me. I've read some literature where people have gotten so freaked out that they've hit them or tried to hurt them. So maybe the paralysis is for that, or maybe it was for me not hurting myself. But
Right.
Hmm.
So
uh,
she said it's like past life regression.
um, no, I wasn't in how can I say? I was very much awake and alive. I wasn't in a trance, which I've had past life regression, and they kind of guide you through a
Yeah.
meditation. No, I was very much awake, and frightened. It was just that they showed me on the left side of my forehead there was a picture of a monk, 13th, 14th century, the rope belt, the funny haircut with the
Yeah.
bald, and then there was me in a church speaking, and had on a three-piece suit, and that actually happened sometime after that. So
So
they were just showing me some things I needed to see. I'm very comfortable in any religious venue, whether it's a church, synagogue, mosque, and I took that as, you've done this before. This is why you're so comfortable. You've been a clergy person in other lifetimes.
so the experience with these extraterrestrials started before you became a reverend.
Yeah, that started in 1989. I was on my way. I was in training. I was in
Okay.
seminary. When I was a kid, looking back, I could say I had visitations, but I didn't know what they were. I would have orbs in my room. I thought everybody saw them. They would just be floating around, and I could see the three dimensionality of like space and in my room, and I would have a lot of nosebleeds, not knowing what that was about. I always saw auras around people. I thought everybody did. There's not a time I can remember that I didn't. But when I started getting into the literature and reading and studying, I would be like, wow, that happened to me. And so those were clues.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very interesting. When you're saying all these things and you're like, and you've been, yes, you're an experiencer. Everybody, whatever. I've just owned I'm an experiencer, and I don't actually propagate that too much. I just like, yeah, I've had a missing time, and I do get downloads, and they do visit. It just makes you smile because I just literally I do I do remote viewing. Um, and I push myself away from I'm very spiritual. I've always been very spiritual. I've had my own personal relationship with God. I have no problems about I can go into almost any religious situation, just like yourself. And it is the weirdest thing to be able to do that because a lot of people don't get comfortable with that. So listening to you, I mean, I haven't done a past life regression, nor do I want to. I've always found that everybody does a past life regression. They were a king or a queen, but no one was ever cleaning the toilets. You never get those people that do that. But I think by them showing you these things and I've had that experience with the images come to your head like boom, boom, boom. And I know it's not from something terrestrial. I can't explain it, but it just feels good to actually hear another human being like this is what went down type of stuff.
mhm.
So, and part of third eye live is how your third eye, your consciousness, your pineal gland, and some kind of prediction or something has directed you to where you are now. Would you say that these initial experiences put you on this path to more than just you know that the religious end of it, not like a preacher, but sermons and
That's a great question. No, I was already on this path um, before my encounters. Now, one could argue maybe you're being guided, and I have no problem with that. But I was already on a path. The Baptist tradition that I grew up with did not work for me anymore. And so I started reading existential philosophy, started going to metaphysical churches, doing readings. So I was already on a path. And when they came, it kind of expedited that. I was already opening up. And so, um, and I think that's crucial because I want people to hear that, whether you're on a path, we're all on a path, but it's not whether it doesn't have to be extraterrestrials or anything, but the
right,
spiritual journey is hard work, and I think that's why a lot of people don't want to do it because it is hard work, and you're looking at parts of yourself that maybe you know ashamed of or what have you. I think it's worth the time. So I want people to hear that I had to do the footwork as well, but as a result of that, I started having these experiences. And so I don't confuse the experiences with the spiritual path. the path is the path, but there's some things that happen along that path, and
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
I mean, it's yeah. There's a lot of footwork when it comes to stuff like this. It's not, everybody has this movie idea of what things should be, and ET being in your bathroom, or it doesn't work that way. Did you have any type of when you started to discuss the ET side of this, the alien side of it, and the different things? I mean, that's a big, bold kind of statement. Did you keep it tight?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then how did
yeah.
how
I
did you
just
broaden it out?
great questions. I was living a double life, if you will, and I was regressed by the late Bud Hopkins and the late
Oh yeah.
Gene Mundy. So Bud and I became very friendly, and Dr. Gene Mundy. So that helped me hold on to my sanity. Like Dr. Mundy said, well, you can decide whether it's good news or bad news, but the good news is what happened to you was real.
Oh yeah.
Uh, now you can decide if it's bad news or not. Anyway, so I'm a voracious reader. So I went to this place called the Open Center downtown on Prince Street and down in the Soho area, and I bought every book I could find on UFOs. And I remember I felt like I was a little boy buying condoms for the first time. I mean, I was so embarrassed. I couldn't even look the guy in the face. And he was a
Yeah.
weird looking guy too, because he had a bald head, but he had dreadlocks coming out of his head. This was before dreadlocks were like the thing.
A
And he
big
was a
thing.
very strange looking man. And I go up to the counter and I got all these books and I'm like, and I put them up on the counter and I won't look at them. And he says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You don't look good." And actually, he said I look like feces.
Yeah.
But he used another word. And he said, "Wow." He said, "A lot of books." He says, "Is this a hobby or is this real?" And I looked around. I remember looking around. I said, "It's real." And he said, "You don't look too good." And he rang it up and he gave me a business card with a number on it. I should start using that. Mark, you don't look it. So anyway, um, he gives
I
me
tell him
this
every day. I
card.
tell him every day.
That's what my wife says. You don't look. So I give him the card, and there's a number on there, and it's to a support group, Brian. And so
Oh,
it was like water to a drowning. I mean, to on the desert because I found people like me.
that is
Oh, it
that's
was
not
a
coincidence.
lifesaver.
No,
No,
that
no,
wasn't
no.
you
Like
were in
communion.
like well, yeah, like communion, but I think you were destined to be in that bookstore. And the gentleman that you're talking about with the bald head and the weird dreads.
I had never seen that.
No, I've never seen that. I'm born and raised in New York City,
They were coming out of
and
this. Well,
yeah,
yeah.
well, it
Thank
kind of
God. Thank God for him. Thank God for
yeah,
him.
because it put you on the right path. Now,
Yeah.
I loved um I kind of bumped into Bud. I never met him,
Oh, he was a
but
lovely man.
he was a genuine human being, and
Oh, he was a lovely man.
he was a non-believer for a while.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
he didn't believe. Yeah, he was a non-believer,
yeah,
and he didn't believe that any good could come out of it. Because that's how I met John Mack and Whitley. I was just on Whitley's show about 2 weeks ago. On
yep,
yes, but what had happened when when I got to that support group? That's how I met Bud, because there were two groups. There was our group who thought that no matter, despite the trauma, that something positive was involved. And then there was Bud's group, who they were like, "You guys are nuts," and
yep,
because they had had, anal probes and sperm and ovum take horrific, and we would get together like once or twice a year, and it was very interesting because we were like oil and water. But I met Bud. And when I met Bud, he was still on the fence, but we became friendly. And he
yeah.
wanted to know about, he regressed me. He was a very good at what he did. And so I miss him, but that's how I got to meet him. I met a lot of people living in New York. I met Zachariah Sitchin,
Yeah.
who
Oh,
was living, he lived on West 86th Street. I used to live on West 8. He lived on between West End and,
I
what's
know
that,
exactly where.
Amsterdam, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I lived between Columbus and the Park. So I met him. Obviously John Mack. So I met Bud. I mean, it was like the heyday. David Jacobs, who I wasn't a big fan of, but I met
Yeah.
him. So it
There's,
was a
there's,
good time to be in the field.
I mean, I was doing my own research by then, but I was younger, so I
Hmm.
wasn't able. When we went to the city, we weren't going to look for Bud Hopkins. We were looking
Yeah.
for Bud. Totally
Yes.
different.
Yes. Yes. This bud's for you.
Yeah, there's Bud's for you. But what I love the fact that is you got. It's almost like divinely you got placed in like cradled into the right spot. And
Hmm.
this is why when people say, well, God doesn't exist, I'm like, yes, he does.
Hmm.
um and this is what, before we started the show, we were having a little chat in the background. I remember going to religious school, and ever since I was a little kid, being into this subject, I really always thought, like, well, what if these aliens are really, angels
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Great, great,
Um,
great. Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. One of the books I picked up was by Dr. Barry Downing, The Bible in Flying Saucers, 1968.
okay,
And he is a brilliant man. He's in his 80s now. He's retired. He was a retired Presbyterian minister, a scholar. And, so here I am, a clergy person, reading about another clergy person,
right.
and he wasn't an experiencer, but he was saying that these angels were probably extraterrestrials because the word angel, as you know, it's what is it, Malek in Hebrew and angelos in Greek. It's an interesting word because it means messenger or envoy, diplomat. But what's interesting about the word is it tells you what the function is. In other words, it tells you what an angel will do. I got a message for you,
Yeah.
but it doesn't tell you where they're from.
No, it doesn't at
Yeah,
all.
it doesn't. So reading the text, I don't want to, I want to let people know. Um, I'm not saying angels don't have wings. I'm just saying that in the Bible, nowhere does it say they have wings.
Right.
I believe our ancestors put wings on them to let us know that these beings could fly.
That would be a great observation on their
Yeah,
part, and it's a
yeah,
simple
yeah.
way of saying something.
These
Now,
beings flew.
right, so again, I was growing up, I wasn't as religious, so I got forced to go to school,
Hmm.
and I was going through like this, portion where you get to a certain age, you have to read from the Old Testament, and they need to know your name, because there's an English name that we have, like you're Michael Carter, that's Mark, good vibration, Eddie right down there, and what have you. But there was a different name because I was born into the Hebrew end of things.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm stuck there, and why am I here? I'd rather be with my friends. I want to, I
Hmm.
want to take
Yeah.
my rock bike out and jump stuff. And normally, when depending on the religion, I don't know on your end of and anybody else's, but usually, like, your name is like, if your name is David, then it's really David Ben for men or Bat for women. Your mother's Hebrew name, whatever it is. So I remember sitting there because I have photographic memory, and they said, "Well, what's his name?" And the guy's looking, and it's a lot more astrology and timing than you would think in this old, archaic religion, dead language religion. And he goes, Eliyahu. So my mother goes, "Oh,
Oh.
Eliyahu, Ben, whatever my dad was." He goes, "No, just Eliyahu." And I'm sitting there, and he had this panic look on his face. And my mother's like, "There's no way, because you have to be." He goes, "I got to go consult." Brought two other guys in, two other rabbis or whatever it was, and they went through and they started talking, and they were like a little argument was taking place. And she said, "Well, what's going on?" He goes, "It's Eliyahu." And they didn't look happy about it. So if you get the definition of it, it's messenger of God.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, even as I was a young man, I own that. I
Mm-hmm.
own that from that day forward, like you wouldn't believe. And I've always felt that calling there. Now, isn't it interesting? A lot of people that have those religious experiences are also having the extraterrestrial experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And you're having, we're in the 80s, right? That's
I
when you first started.
my first the first the contact I shared with you was December 28th, 1989.
Okay, so picture yourself and know what the experience was like. And now I'm going to call on Mark Eddy, who's not paying attention. He's studying for his psych final. How is it? Because he wanted to ask questions about Betty and Barney Hill. So Mark, I'm going to bring you in here. How the heck do you think it was for Betty and Barney Hill at that point, comparing the, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's difficult enough to be with, but compounded by the social issues going on, and then the dynamic between Betty and Barney Hill. My personal opinion, love is love. I don't care who you are. I mean, go for it, Mark.
Okay, well, if you're talking about the social issues, I think Michael in his initiation is covering some parts of experiences. Just this is just a human response, and one of the couple samples of many experiencers share these traits: wanting to make the world a better place, wanting to serve humanity. Boy, that's not showing. I hate that blur.
What page are you on in that book, Mark?
On page 33.
Okay.
But
It won't be in the final, folks. Don't worry about it. But please pick up a copy of the book,
it,
because it will be on part of the summer reading program.
but in captured, Kathleen Martin and writes, Barney's dedication to political and community involvement afforded him a certain level of comfort. He was able to focus on social justice issues and to exercise his strong intellectual talents for the betterment of society. And when you start looking at the samples of biblical characters experiencing UFOs, or some of the traits of the characters in Close Encounters, and you and there's almost 4,000 years of people behaving the same way from different time periods, different
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the really interesting things about your initiation, as well as what you talk about on your shows.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really important to remember, because I know some people who have left religion behind, and for good reason. However, I don't read the Bible anymore. I don't, but I say don't do that, because it's the book that gives us. It's one of the books that gives us the information of what it was like for our ancestors to share the planet with these beings. And we don't look at it that way, but because, but we were invaded.
Yeah,
That's what this book
that's
is
the problem.
about. We were invaded. Now you can call it an intervention. Arose by any other name. Some of these beings were friendly. Some of them not so much. But the Bible, the Quran, the Vedic scriptures, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata stories, they are telling, our ancestors are telling us what it was like to have been colonized and to have been ruled over by these beings. And
Right.
so it's just a different way to look at it. Now, it's not to say that the Bible doesn't have beautiful truths in it, that they're wonderful stories, there are lessons in it, but these books are telling us what it was like, and they responded the same way some of us respond now to technology. It's almost godlike. We worship technology in our culture. Where would we be without it? We worship it. That and money. But the thing is that what happens when these angels, these beings encounter, like they did Miriam, Yeshua's mom, or Johanan, John the Baptist, Elizabeth. What did they say? Don't be afraid. What did the reptilian tell me when he walked in my room? Easy for him to say. Touch
Yeah.
me with those. Don't be afraid. So, we're talking about tic tacs and all this drones and stuff in the sky. Well, look at Kenneth Arnold. Look at, the Foo Fighters in World War II. It's like history repeating itself. And in the Bible, when Josephus talks about the flying shields, when he talks about the Roman war with the Jews, in the Battle of Jerusalem in 70 CE, he talks about flying shields in the sky over Jerusalem. So these beings have been here
Yeah.
since before antiquity, and they're here now. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is go back and look a little more closely at what our ancestors are trying to tell us.
Yeah, like Ezekiel,
Yes.
what he arrives on is a UFO. It's like, if you've studied the subject, if you've seen the subject, frankly, anybody who's had an experience does not need disclosure. They know they're real.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I would also wager that anybody that has had this experience in the interactions like yourself knows that whatever disclosure it is more deception than disclosure, and I'll just trust getting the interactions directly from source, which will be the extraterrestrials. Now, what I found interesting is that the reptilian said, "Don't be afraid,"
Hmm. Hmm.
because there are. Now, I have yet to meet a reptilian. One of my friends did the movie "Don't Talk About the Reptilians." Um, Chris. Oh God, Chris, you're gonna kill me. It's not Evers. Chris Turner. He's a movie maker out of the UK. He's doing don't mention the reptilians, or don't speak about the reptilians part two. They're not always very nice. Of all of them, well, and I can't speak of that from personal experience, but from enough of the interviews and meeting people who have had interactions with them, not always the nicest. But that doesn't, it's a yin yang. Do you think there's a lot of that? I don't want to use the term "as above, so below" because it's so satanic at certain points in this current culture. But do you think there is a balance or a yin yang to these extraterrestrials, no matter what species, race, or dimension they come in, or they're certain ones in your experience that are like, you don't want to deal with these, the
Um,
fly ones, or
I don't want to be glib. I mean, there's certain people
right?
I don't want to
Okay,
deal with. You know what I mean? I mean, there are people who are not always nice. So, in
right.
answer to your question, yes, there are some. There are some.
I'm only
He,
joking. Look,
he pointed to you, Mark. No, but there are some beings that may be more friendly, and some who are not, and that's about as the best way I can do it. But or say it. But that's true with anything. or
Right.
any group of people. I did not. This reptilian did not hurt me. He. I also think it's the bias that we have in the West because of the misinterpretation of the serpents. Because if you go to Chinese culture or you go to the
Yeah.
East,
Totally opposite.
the dragons are, yeah, they're good guys. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't have that, but we've been told here that the serpent and the snake and all that is demonic, and so I think it's a lot of cultural baggage put on that,
Yeah. No.
on those particular people.
And I'm with you 100% with that, because I'm not a big. I used to, catch snakes and whatever. There's something about them, they just bug me at this point. But it doesn't mean that they're bad. They serve a purpose. Like
Yes.
I've moved from New York down to Florida.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I mean, there are tons of snakes down here, and then there's this really big long one that's all black, and it kind of looks. If you look at it in a different light, sometimes it gives you that water moccasin vibe to it, but it's not. It's a black razor snake, and they are awesome for one, eating other snakes that are poisonous. Big, savings on you, and also taking care of rodent problems. So everything has a point and a purpose. And what I love is, so how did I mean? You go as a reverend, and you're doing sermons and these type of offerings for people. Did they help you in the teaching aspect of the healing portion of it? The Reiki, and then you said the space Reiki, which is so
Yeah,
much
yeah,
better.
yeah. Well, I just call it that. What had happened was, I was going through this metamorphosis. A caterpillar is becoming a butterfly. I was getting away uh, from the traditional Christianity that I was raised with.
Right,
And so I started getting into metaphysics, and I went to a Reiki healer because I had asthma really, 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 really bad. And that Reiki helped. And so what had happened was shortly thereafter, her name was Catherine Linnell. She's crossed over by now, but she had cancer, and the Reiki had helped her for as long as it did. So she said, "You may want to learn this," and I did learn it. What had happened was, when I started getting these visits, my energy level shot up because these beings, these people vibrate on such a high level. And so a friend of mine who I hope is listening tonight, uh, uh, Rose Starr, she was a healer. And she came to me for a couple sessions, and she was walking with a cane at the time. And I used the energy, and I think after 3 or 4 sessions, she didn't really need the cane anymore. And so Rose is very blunt,
okay,
and but she's also a very gifted healer. I must tell you that. Um, and she was raised Catholic, and so she said to me one day, I can't repeat the words. It is a children's audience, despite what we saw. She said, you're a lying, da 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 da. She said, that's not Reiki you're doing. She said, that's from your friends. That's from those space people you're friends with. She said, I've been doing healing before you were even thought about it, young man. And we laughed. And she was right. It was a different energy from just your Yusui type system of Reiki, from what was the name, Tahada, the Japanese woman, and so anyway, and to this day, and I credit them. I mean, I always had free choice to do what but every time they came, my energy was so charged that I could put my hand. I've had people tell me that their cancers have gone away. I've had people tell me that tumors have shrunk after a session. Now, I can't promise that. I've
right.
also had people who were dying and they died more peacefully. They didn't want to die, they were afraid to die. I give them some of the energy, they go on to life after life. But I can't promise that. But that has been part of my ministry. It's becoming more and more part of my ministry at this time. I mean, I
Which
have
is
my
great.
church, but yeah, this is what I love doing it. I love I
Well,
love doing this.
I belong to an organization that everybody thinks is Illuminati, but it's not. And then they have these appended bodies. And it just so happened that a couple of my brothers sent me something because they had someone on their show called who's a Martinist.
Hmm.
And I know people that are in the Martinists, in the Rosicrucians and whatever. And a lot of these appended bodies, even though they fall into a certain, like, whatever, Freemasonry or whatever it is, they're not. They're very independent, but they're what they the reason why they go into this Freemason zone is because unfortunately not everybody can do this, and not everybody should do this, because I think you have a pure you have a pure heart, Michael. There's a purity to you. It's been there since you were a monk in 16 whatever, and you had the crappy
Right.
haircut. you
Right.
know
Oh my God.
you know what I'm saying? like
I
like
was a
I mean,
mess.
I've literally, I think I was more of a healer, but on a spiritual, also a spiritual end, and Reiki ish type of thing. I know I've used that before because I've automatically started to do things before I got really like into the remote viewing, and when I started asking questions. And I had my mentor, who I remember talking to. She's in Arkansas. She was had a she was in MUFON Star Team, and she's a heck of a psychic. Great, wonderful woman. Her name is Cindy Bailey Dove. Um, and I told my buddy, like, hey, contact Cindy and say I'd like to explore this. You know, so I remember talking to her. And I said, hey Cindy, thanks for helping me with this. I want to explore it, but I don't want to open a Pandora's box. Famous last words, right?
Yeah.
So you were like, there you are talking to a 4-foot gray, and the next thing you know, you're like, you got Yoda on your side, and you're like, you know, and you're healing people, however, I mean, I'm sure you've done long distance healing as
Mhm.
well, because it's all you're doing is manipulating the field, and it's energy that's around you. You can almost like have a direct line to them. I like the fact that she said that's some kind of alien stuff you're doing there. That's a
She said it, and I know Rose's list. Her name is Rosemary Starr.
God
She's a
bless you, Rosemary.
wonderful healer. Yeah, and she's. We just got back in contact recently, and she's a, as they used to say when I was coming up, she's a hell of a somebody.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes, but what
She's
I
a
love
hell of a
about
somebody.
yeah, what I love about her and the way she treated you and what she said. Everybody calls the kids. Everybody says it today, and I hate using that term, the kids, because I want to be a kid again. But that's keeping it real,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. Well,
and that's
well, and
that's
she
the real
does that.
deal. You
Yeah,
know, I remember I was on the Three Beards podcast, and I don't know if you've done that with
I did a
No,
long time
Craig,
ago. Yeah.
because there's a guy in here named Craig, and he's a troublemaker. And and then I was the guest numerous times. They said, "Hey, we like the way you think, what you say. Come on." And I remember um, we had John Russell on, a psychic, world renowned. And at the end of it, we were asking some questions. Craig had asked a certain personal question, and I asked a personal question. And from the very moment I met him, I knew we were going to hit it off, and we were going to be like brethren. But I asked him a question. He goes, "You want to hear what you want to hear, or do you want to hear the truth?"
Mm.
Now, for the most part, the younger Bryan would have been like, "Tell me, I want to hear what I want to hear." But that didn't last long because I've been through too much stuff. So it's like, tell me the truth because I don't want to waste time. I found out early on that, you want to hear the truth. And with Rose, she told you the truth,
Oh
whether
yeah,
you liked it or not. But
yeah.
that's the best way. And then that's how you really connect with somebody. And there's that energy field there to it. Do you believe, how did you get, I want to byproduct. How did they say, hey, Michael, we want you to come on Ancient Aliens?
Wow,
Because
that's a great question. You know what
that's a big,
happened? Yeah.
that's huge.
Well, it was. I was working at a hospital here. I was a chaplain, and then I kind of moved up to like administration,
Right.
and which was not fun. But I let a friend of mine talk me into it. and the book was out, and I got a call. I forget that they're producers. It's different producers all the time, and he said, "Hi, this is John Doe. I'm looking to speak to Reverend Michael Carter." And I said, "This is Reverend Carter." And he said, "I'm John Doe from Prometheus Productions in Hollywood, California." And he said, "I have your book here, Alien Scriptures, and I'm enjoying it, and I'd like to know if you would like to be on the show." That was in 2015. And I said, "Yeah." And it's been 10 years now. And I've been doing the show at least two, three times a year.
It is, you know, you when you're doing this research and you're doing it for your own curiosity or information, that's what most people do. But in the process, you're helping people, which is very much what you do. You're there to help people. Yeah,
Yeah.
you send a message and that helps people too. But the healing, the space Reiki and whatever, that's a healing, a message. When you get when you get those messages from these producers, it makes you feel good. They don't pay you
Oh, yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
um,
Oh no, you're not going to get rich from it, but
no,
my book sales go up. You're reaching millions of people. Television is the medium,
right.
and so you're getting your message out.
And then the potential to go to the Ancient Aliens conference and be one of the guests is always good. And what you said as well. But there's a certain testimony that I first of all, I have my own theories on things, and my problem is I do a lot more talking and I should write it out. And now I'm
Mhm.
writing stuff out. So then you publish a book and people are like, wow, this is good. That's how you get a little bit more recognition because for some
Mhm.
reason, if you don't publish a book um,
That's
on the
true. That's
subject,
true. Yeah,
right?
yeah. You're not taken seriously
Yeah,
unless you've written something, unless you published something.
right. And so that's what I'm actually. It's been since probably 2015, 2016, with another gentleman, Ron Murphy, and we're doing a book that's about different Earth mounds, um, extraterrestrials, giants, Nephilim,
Hmm.
ET, and native indigenous. And we're putting certain things together, why things have happened, and trying to connect the dots. I don't necessarily believe that the angels. I've changed my opinion about it. I thought maybe extraterrestrials are really angels, or angels are really extraterrestrials. I think it's like you said before. They have wings because they fly. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're extraterrestrial. It just means that they're vibrating at a higher frequency. They're above us. We're technically children to them. So this is why we're going to throw our theory out there, and it's just a theory because
Hmm.
to be honest, um, I think I've actually met a guardian angel at one point
Hmm.
a couple of years ago, which was weird because I was having a really really bad day, and someone walked past me. This beautiful woman of color was walking down in the Bronx, going down to the Metro North station. We had a lot of hills, and I was just fuming outside my apartment building. And she came out of nowhere, and she smiled and like, "Hi, have a good night." And I was like, I instantaneously go back to I can't be angry at other people, and I smiled back at her, and I was like, "That's weird." She came out of nowhere, and I turned around, and she was gone. So, you know, I've had those experiences
Hmm.
with that. Do
Yeah.
you have, besides the extraterrestrial aspect of it, have you had any experiences with what would be more angelic or on the religious spiritual end, like what the good book?
Well, I mean, I've had several experiences like you just had. It made me look down at in the New Testament book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 2. It talks about entertaining angels unaware, that you need to be hospitable to people
Yep.
because you may be entertained. They may be angels, and you may not even know it. I've had one occasion, I forgot what I was doing out that early in the
Right.
morning. I may have been going to a movie shoot or whatever, but I remember I was downtown on Broadway in the 20s, and it was around 7, 8 in the morning. I had a lot on my mind, and I'm walking with a purpose, and I saw this homeless brother uh, sitting on the curb, and I walked by him, and he says, "Why the sad face?" And he snapped me out of a trance. And I said, "Oh, brother, thank you." He said, "Yeah, come on, let's see a little smile." And I had $5. I went over and I gave it to him. And I said, "You have a great day and thanks again." And I took 3 steps. And when I turned around, that guy was gone. No way he could have done. There's just no
Yeah.
way. There's just no way.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I've had that happen several times, and I'm thinking that was an angel. That's a therapist may say, well, it's your whatever it was. He lifted my spirits, but he was gone. That happens. It happens a lot in New York City, but it was like, where did this guy go? No
Well,
way he could have gotten up that fast and disappeared. There was hardly anybody on the street. It was like
it-
7 o'clock in the morning.
it's too, and when we say, I think I don't want to speak for you on that, but I think you're in the same. When I say it's like we're talking about like a couple of seconds.
Yeah,
It's not like he walked 10 feet, which is really like 5-6 seconds, and then he turned around. We're talking like it hit, it registered immediately, and you look around, they're gone.
they're gone.
It's the same experience. Last year, I had there was a lot of evil in the air. I mean, it felt like there was evil everywhere. Satanic stuff. It was really weird, and I wasn't the only one feeling it. And and I had a problem with my car. I had on the dashboard of my car, it was on the mileage was 666. Now that could also be subconscious and psychosomatic, but my car broke down, and then I had to get it towed, and it felt like I was under attack. And 2 people that are light workers said we're under attack right now, and it felt like it. And the the kicker was in the same vein of this, where you can meet an angel, you can meet somebody else. I'm sitting in the same room. I'm like, I got to find something else to watch. I watched the movie Running Scared with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines.
And Gregory Hines, yeah.
Great movie. There, it's a lot. It's a series. It's fun. It's an action adventure, but there's some comedy in it, so it's great. And it's about 10 something at night, and they're in Chicago, and they pull back. You do a close up of the Jesus Saves cross, so wherever it is in Chicago, they pull down. And then you see that the 3, it's Billy Crystal, Gregory Hines, and whoever that character was that was like the parrot or whatever his name was. And they're walking to meet the bad guy. And when they zoom in on the bad guy, they're walking in front of, my hand to God, the 666 lounge. So I'm like, no freaking way this is happening, right? So it gets better. So move to Florida, right? We don't have bodegas down here. We have racetrack, like gas stations, So I said, you know what? I need something. I need like a soda, and like I don't do sweets, even though I'm a big boy. And I went out and I drove. It's just down the street from my house, out of the complex, and I'm sitting there and I'm like mulling over the 666, and there's a gentleman sitting. It's like 10:30 at night, wearing a blood red shirt with mirrored sunglasses outside the gas station. Something about it started hitting me right in the solar plexus. I'm like, I'm not liking this. And I go there, and the guy smiles at me, and it's very much like a movie with Lisa Bonet and Mickey Rourke about the devil, and I forgot the name.
Angel
Heart, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, with Robert De Niro was in that.
Right, when they meet,
and Mickey Rourke,
yeah, Louis Cypher.
Yep.
That's the guy who won't, doesn't do the eggs.
Yep.
This guy's smiling at me. He's asking me about the Bright Line, the train that goes to up it'll drive from like Florida all the way up to Baltimore or whatever it is. It's like a bullet train. And he goes, "Hey, let me ask you, can I get to the Bright Line?" I'm like, "Yeah, just go down this street." He goes, "Oh, I could walk it?" I said, "No." And I knew he wants me to take him. And there was something about this man. I said, "No effing way." I'm like, "Yeah, you better call an Uber." So I go in, he smiles, gives me this weird smile. Go into racetrack, literally bought Fanta Zero and a freaking Twinkie I haven't had in forever. I get to the register, I go to pay for it. Want me to tell you what the total was?
Let me
It was
guess.
$6.66.
Yeah.
And now I got to go out the same door I came in, and I'm like, I just looked up. I said, "Lord, please give me your protection." And he didn't even have a chance to say hello. I literally felt like I was talking to the devil that night. And I'm telling you, when you have these experiences between evil, because the devil will play games with you because he wants to deceive you. His minion below him, they don't play games. All the demons and all that. I don't do demonic stuff. And any investigations well above my pay grade. I don't know if you do it, but I know people that are there's a couple of people that I know that are in the religious institution that deal with. Father Bob is one of them. The Warriors St. Michael's, another one of them. And I'll let them handle it. I'm like, out of my pay, I got kids. We're not doing that crap. But it's wonderful. If you think meeting that gray alien and the praying mantis and the Nordic and the reptilian, I mean, when you meet an angel, and I really do believe there's heaven in this thing. I don't know how to say it, but where's your take on this? Do you think it's separate and distinct between the two, or is there some kind of like bridge that bridges them together? Because a lot of people talk about demons and talk about certain creatures like reptilians and maybe being aggressive or scared. And when they mention the word Jesus, the name of Jesus Christ or Yeshua, the Yeshua is the proper name. See, these extraterrestrials seem to like, whoa, back up.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, I mean, like, there's an alien side to certain things, but there's also a spiritual God. What's in the Bible? And yes, there are, as you mentioned, in some of the Old Testament and the scriptures, there seems to be UFOs and certain extraterrestrials. But do you think it's separate? It's like, where is it? Like God is in the top, then they have these extraterrestrials on one end, like on mom's end of the family tree, and then they have angels on another.
I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer
Okay.
that. All I can say is that, and we're finding out that we live in a populated universe. Okay, the universe is teeming with life. There are beings who use ships to travel. There are beings that use thought to travel. There are beings that don't even need bodies. There are beings who their bodies are made. We're surrounded
Yeah.
by these beings. And I think our ancestors were trying to use the language of their day. For instance, in the Bible, sometimes they'll refer to a spirit. Now, we don't know whether that spirit has a body or it doesn't. What makes them a spirit? We know that the angels that they talk about are not ethereal, transcendent beings. They eat, they drink, they get women pregnant.
Yeah, they
Okay,
do.
so they're not like these little wispy kind of ethereal beings, and so I don't know how to answer that question, and that's
Right.
probably more on me, but I can tell you that from any experiencer that we are never alone, and we never have been alone. And there's as many races as there are people. And so that is the challenge of us as a species if we don't blow ourselves up if we don't have another ice age, if we're not hit uh,
By an
by some
asteroid.
type of asteroid,
Yeah.
how are we going to deal with knowing that we're not highest on the food chain and that there are civilizations that are technologically thousands of years ahead of us? Doesn't mean they may be more spiritual. Just because you have technology doesn't mean you're spiritual. Just look at what's going on in our world.
Yeah.
But but how are we going to react to that? Because it's going to come out probably sooner than later. And then we're going to have to talk about what does that do with religion. Obviously, we're focusing more on national security issues, but what's that going to do with economics? It's going to change the way that we live.
Did you,
And
right.
that's what we need to be prepared for because this is all about consciousness. This is not about lasers and
Yep.
back engineering. I mean, that's part of it. And greater minds than mine, the Gary Nolans of the world, Jacques Vallée, I leave
Uh,
that to them. But there's a spiritual component to this that I think um, trumps that, no pun intended. And I think we
right.
need to be looking at that.
And something I heard, I think it was last week. I knew about this because if you're in this subject, you know this is the case. Trump did an interview, and I think he was basically putting Iran and China on notice about because there's always these threats, we're going to bomb you type of stuff, and he basically put everybody or the world on notice, and he says we have things you couldn't even dream of, and he basically told you straight up there is not a nation on this planet that could take us on if we start, and he was like, we're going to start using stuff that is going to be blowing your mind to put an end to the BS, because I'm not a huge fan of the man, but I think he does not want to have conflict. You know, his trying to stop whatever's going on in Ukraine. I'm not getting political. He just wants the dying to stop. There's a certain, I think the man was visited by, I always said he had a come to Jesus moment, just like George Washington had a ghost experience that he writes about in one of his books. But could that have been an extraterrestrial coming in and saying, listen, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. You got to flank him on this side. What role do these beings take place in politics? Or like if the, what do you think is part of that role?
Well,
I need
it's all politics.
exopolitics
It's
too.
all politics. Yeah, it's geopolitics and exopolitics. And exopolitics is the politics of who represents the earth and how do we deal with different civilizations. But it's all when it's fascinating to me in the UFO community. I hear people say I don't like politics. Now, I'm not talking about partisan politics, whether you like the current administration or the old. I'm
Right.
not talking about that. I'm talking about when you look in the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. These beings are always involved because it's all politics.
Yep.
When the first human king for the Israelites is Saul. They fire Yahweh. They got tired of Yahweh, which brings up some questions because how could you fire God?
Right.
But they say Yahweh has gone crazy. We don't want that anymore. And so we want a human king. And so they get Saul. Saul has his problems, and after Saul comes David. But that's all politics. That's all politics. Because you're talking about kings and pharaohs and
Right.
queens. And
So
so it's all politics. Even now, we've got Congress and the Senate and these whistleblowers with military intelligence and what have you arguing. We need that information. Why don't we know about this? Oh, we don't need to keep, you don't have a need to know. What is that? That's politics. So when
yeah,
I
it
hear,
is.
people talking about, well, I don't do politics. What are you talking about? This whole thing is politics. And it has been since they've been here because they were the original kings and
Yep.
queens. And so who were their subjects? Human beings.
Right. And
So
then you
it's
have
all it's
multiple. Yeah.
politics is all it runs out throughout the whole phenomenon. Exopolitics and geopolitics.
Right. And then
and
you
you
get
know,
into. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
oh, I just wanted to briefly say, there was Herod was must have felt really threatened by Jesus's birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's politics. Rome played hardball. You so they say to Jesus, "You think you're a king? We don't have any kings here but Caesar. We can't have that kind of talk, young man." So
Right.
they do what they do. What is that? That's politics. Moses bringing the tribe out of Egypt. Pharaoh is upset.
Politics. Mm,
That's politics. It's all about politics. Now it's a different level of politics. It's not whether you're blue and I'm red or you're what. It's not that, but it is about who's running things here. Who's going to run this here?
right. And it does get interesting, but we're going to get off the political discussion. But because I want to, and I don't want to keep you too long. We have a little bit like a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Something I was doing research on, and I was like, oh, this I have to ask you about this. So there's a lot of talk about things found. Talk about ancient architecture in the southwestern portion of the United States, like Grand Canyon, a Sphinx, pyramids. You get the South American pyramids that are very reminiscent of what took place in Egypt and the Middle East. But this is something that blew my mind recently. So if you someone was talking about Noah's Ark, and Noah's Ark was made from gopher wood. Okay, so where does everybody think Noah's Ark was made? It's in the Middle East, right? That's what everybody was told. That's what it is. Guess where gopher wood is only found on this planet?
Where?
Georgia and Florida.
Hmm.
Guess what the Mississippi, if you look up the Garden of Eden, there was one river that connected to three. The only place that has that, it's the Mississippi River.
Mm.
Why if this is the case, and we are, because there's also talk about the Templars taking the Holy Grail, Mary and Jesus and his body, and moving it to New Jerusalem, which would have cut through Nova Scotia, and she went to bed. Jen went to bed from Newfoundland, and it came down through Oak Island. That was a storage area. And there's, you get into what Scott Walter did, Dr. Scott Walter did. Hopefully we'll get him on the show to discuss about the Kensington Ruin Stone. Why, if this is the case and there's a connection to extraterrestrials with some of these biblical figures and in the Bible, why would they purposely deceive or help to or allow to be deceived the location of these things from the Middle East, which is way far off from where Georgia and Florida is? And why would you think that would be done? And would it be done by extraterrestrials? Or would it be done by, as we were saying just before I asked the question, the political governments?
I have no idea.
Okay, no. I was just asking.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. That is really a question that I have no idea. I would just say a couple of things. The first thing I would say is every 5 years we find Noah's Ark somewhere.
Yeah,
Always happen.
yeah,
Okay, so I'm just saying. Okay, every 5 years we found Noah's Ark. It's like every 5 years the oldest person in the world dies, or every year. So these are just kind of. Secondly, we have to at least take into account that the continents may have been closer together
right.
at times.
Yep.
We've had several floods, at least according to Plato and Berossus, the Babylonian priests.
Right.
So, if you're looking at it like, were the land masses the way they are now? Probably not. And so those things have to factor in. But that's a field that I'm not familiar with. So
I just
I'm
thought it
sorry I
was
couldn't help
really
with that.
interesting
Yeah.
because given all the, this is where what I love about Ancient Aliens, and then where I love where you come in and you have that. I mean, like you have it's it's like the old McDLT. It's like the hot side stays hot and the cool side stays cool. You got the religious side that stays religious, but you also have the extraterrestrial side, and then you have that bridge more so than most people in this field. And people, this is the problem I think we have with everybody now. That this field is all encompassing for the
Yes.
most part. And so many people are dividing themselves into camps.
Mm,
And that's what
yeah.
happened in Babel, right? That's why the Tower of Babel. And then God said, no, you're going to speak Chinese. You're going to speak Swahili. You're going to speak English. You're going to speak this. We got to stop that crap. And I never was one of those kumbaya guys because, look, not everybody deserves the kumbaya, but we got to start thinking more circular, balance, yin yang on it. And
Hmm.
I think a great way to breach that subject for people that are having a hard time is, without a doubt, to go and get yourself a few copies of this wonderful man's books.
Thank
You
you.
know, Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. You could do it on Amazon. Do you do it? Do you sell at Amazon through your website? Because we're going to throw that up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, they can go to my
Okay.
website as well, or they can just type in my name on Amazon, and the books will
Yeah.
pop up.
And then I'm going to stop sharing this so I can show you his website because I want to share this with you. I know I don't want to keep you for forever. I'd love to be able to go, hey, we're
The
meeting.
audience wants that.
Well, yeah, I
Michael's a
know,
great
but I
guest.
want to. He is a great guest. I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom. You can come back anytime, preach,
Oh, I would
whatever
love
you
to.
want. And I'd love to have you back because I love. I have tons more questions, and I don't want to. It's Wednesday night. Everybody has things that they have to.
Well, I know I got to work in the morning, but
Yeah,
it would be great to come back on, and let's try and set up another date. No,
please.
maybe we'll do 2 hours, and then we can really go in depth into, I can tell you about some of the biblical passages which would help support my theory in the Old and New Testaments. We can talk about disclosure. We
That would
could
be
just
great.
we could just more go more in depth, and so let's do that.
Yeah, I think that would be great, and then I can catch up on my summer reading list, which is
No, this
the
was
author of the summer
it
is
was
Michael.
wonderful to be on the show, and I'd like to do it again.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's one, usually when the summer comes, people kind of calm down a little bit more and they're
Yeah,
like a little bit more mellow,
yeah,
and get
And in
some
the
drinks.
winter, everyone just wants to hibernate.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
So now's a
you-
good time. Shoulder season's a good time to get people on shows. But hey, Michael, just one quick question before we
Hmm.
go. Okay, you make a ET uh, manger connection. Is there evidence of ETs during Easter since we have that coming up this weekend? Just got to work that in for
yeah, we got to
a
throw the
seasonal question.
Good Friday this Friday.
Yeah, yeah, and we're in
Last
Passover.
Supper is
We're in
tomorrow.
Passover now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Tomorrow is Monday, Thursday. Um, I think that if we look at the Easter story and the Synoptic Gospels, um, I think it's Matthew and I know Luke, where they're the two angels at the tomb.
Right.
They're dressed in dazzling clothes. They roll away that stone. The soldiers are in shock. I think that we could ask what was really going on there. I think that at the end of that story, where Jesus is going up in the air in a cloud, we know that our ancestors weren't really stupid people. They knew that people just don't fly on clouds, but they were trying to use the vernacular of their day to
Right.
try to explain what happened. If you go in the First Testament, if you go in the Torah, remember when Moses has them wandering around after leaving Egypt, they see a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. We have those. People describe that now. That in the daytime, sometimes these UFOs are hidden in clouds,
Hmm.
but at night they glow. So in their vernacular, they're saying the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. They are following something that's in the air. It stops. They camp out underneath of it. That's the basic definition of a UFO. Now we call them
Yeah.
UAPs. Well, Jesus, in the Jesus story, he leaves the earth after the 40 days after the crucifixion. He leaves the earth on a cloud. And these two angels in John, I think it is, in white, they say to the people watching, why are you watching him leave? The same way he leaves, he's going to come back. So we're having some type of interaction between human beings and some craft in the sky.
Yep.
So that's where that would fit in to the Easter narratives.
And it's still an each. There's a couple of there's a picture of, and you've probably seen it. It's an extraterrestrial holding baby Jesus,
Hmm.
and on the bottom is, I don't think you're ready to have this conversation.
Yeah, I've seen that meme.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's. Let me tell you something. I've had personal experiences with Yeshua. I know they're personal, and I'm not going to go in it. And I got in trouble for it. And because you get, again, let's go into groups, extreme this, extreme that, instead of being more tolerant, but we won't get into it. It is Easter. I wish everybody a happy Easter and a blessed Easter. He has risen. Good Friday this Friday. And because it's Good Friday, a bunch of years ago, I coined the name for Thursday, Thank a Jew Thursday, because if it wasn't for the Jews, you wouldn't have Jesus. So that's why I put Thank a Jew Thursday. But either way, what I would personally like to do, and I recommend everybody else do, try to be nice to each other. Really try to be nice to each other. My youngest daughter has been doing this since she was 5 or 6 years old. And no one put it up to her. She would go, I like your glasses. She just picked something on somebody. And you know what that does for that person that day? Changes their life. It makes their day better. And if we all start practicing that same thing, like, Michael, where'd you get that? Oh, those are beautiful frames. It's not being condescending. That everybody wants somebody to notice them and say something nice about them. They do this all the time with the earrings, though, but they're girls. I have 2 daughters. I'm like, I should be bald right now, Michael. They're the reason why I had a massive heart attack. But that's a different story, different subject. But there was a woman at the deli counter down here in Florida, and we were talking, and we just had, I talk to everybody. It drives everybody crazy, my wife crazy. How come you talk to everybody? I said, you never know who your best friend's going to be. Your best friend was once a perfect stranger. So I talk to everybody and treat everybody with a lot of respect. If you have a name tag on, I'm like, hey, Bob, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for your help. People love that. And when Bob's having a bad day, like this woman behind the counter whose husband is suffering from cancer, without a beat, my daughter go, well, I'm going to pray for your husband, and I hope he gets healed very, very soon. That's coming out of my daughter, and she did it when she was 11 years old. And you want to talk about proud? It's not that she hit a home run or, she got the part in the play. That made my day. And if we all start practicing it, and I know it's hard, people, because trust me, there's a lot of natural selection out there that should be kicking in. But what I believe you do, Michael, and your work does the exact same thing for people, and I think paying it forward is great, and I do appreciate that type of thing that you do with the healing and with the books and with the communicating, whether it's on Ancient Aliens or in your other public forums and other interviews. And I think it's wonderful that, I appreciate and I thank you very much. I'm honored to
All
have
right.
you on the program. You are a
Thank
star.
you. Let's do it again. Let's
You
do
got
it
it.
again.
I blame
Mark,
Mark.
thank you. I thank you, Mark. I hope you guys have a good night.
Yes, and like I do it all the time. I always close the show with my song. So if it wasn't for you, Michael and Mark Getty and everybody else that's watching in chat, please come in, like, share, subscribe. It makes a great Easter gift. It's free.
All right.
If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do it. We'll see you next week with we're going to talk Shakespeare on the day he died and how he never did it. But blessings to you, Michael, and we look forward to having you back.
Happy
Have
Easter.
a great time. Happy
Thank
Easter.
you, everyone.
Happy Easter.
You, it's always been you. God showed me you. I have been searching decades for you. I found you, I lost you. My heart is broken without you. My soul aches for you. I need you, I want you. My days are filled with you. I've seen the future with you. My home is with you. I have felt the future with you. My nights are filled with you. Love is you. True love is you. My happiness is you. Every past life is with you. My dreams are filled with you. Life is meaningless without you. My future is with you. I will fight for you. I will defend you. I will give up my life for you. Whatever it takes for you. Nothing else matters but you. I love you. I love you. I love you. God showed me you. I have been searching decades for you. I found you, I lost you. My heart is broken without you. My soul aches for you. I need you, I want you. My days are filled with you. I have seen the future with you. My home is with you. I have felt the future with you. My nights are filled with you. Love is you, true love is you. Love is you, true love is you. My happiness is you. Every past life is with you. My dreams are filled with you. Life is meaningless without you. My future is with you. I will fight for you. I will defend you. I would give up my life for you. Whatever it takes for you. Nothing else matters but you. I love you. I love you. Life is meaningless without you. My future is with you.